If you remove, for a person who believes in God, if you remove that concept, they fall into an abyss. There's nothing anchoring their mind. They need it. They needed to make sense of the world. They needed to make sense of their suffering. They needed to, so that they don't feel alone. They needed to give meaning to their lives. They need the concept, just like a woman needs to believe in her prince. The idea of God is so powerful. It's a person thinks of God, or whatever their concept of God is, and they have an instant feeling, a sensation. It's like your perfect drug dispenser. And of course that God loves you and takes you exactly as you are and is always on your side. And the question is that true? So one has to detox from their fetishes. Fetishes meaning whatever you're holding on to with your mind, to protect you from the intensity of life and the life current circulating or attempting to circulate through you, which overwhelms you. So one needs to detox from the concept of God to slowly and surely enter into relationship with life itself, which is it not God? As I said, it's the power of life at the base of the entire creation, a supreme intelligence. El-kalma maktuba, that means the written intelligence, the code. Is that not what God actually is? If you wanted to use the word God to define something, is that not literally what it is? But then that's not a concept. That's a reality. Do you see what I mean? So there's a world of difference between the idea and reality. Although the idea may perfectly describe reality, that's what Hindus specialize in, it doesn't really matter, it's still an idea. So unless you have an actual experience of a waterfall, it doesn't matter how you've defined it and how deep you've created a mental vision of it. It's still not real. You can take refuge in your own personal metaverse in your brain, which you can, let's say you spend thousands of hours reading, let's use the Hindu scriptures for it, because it's vast and vast and vast, and you can read and read and read, and it becomes like a pantheon of the deities, and how it's like you could create like a picturesque, perfect movie in your mind of reality, depending on how intellectually strong you are, right? And you can literally create that, and when you create that, and then we can get into mantra science, which I'm not going to get into right now. The point is, it creates a world. You can project yourself in it. You can become a citizen of it. Does that make it real? But it's real for you. You've projected yourself in it, and you've encoded in it specific kinds of sensations and specific kinds of experiences. You're literally tapping into your mind to create specific kind of chemistry inside your body. This is literally what the anti-religion scientist movement says. It's not totally false. I don't think they explain it as savvily, I'm not sure if that's a word, but it sounds cool. But the point is, so you create a mental concept in your brain of what God is, and then you project yourself and you immigrate there. You go there with your mind, and you live there. And then everything you experience, every day you experience, every experience you experience is through that filter, which protects you from life. Well, then how do you get to know life? How do you get to actually understand an experience that you're actually having? And how do you actually learn how to navigate and flow through life itself? And life doesn't give a fuck about your concept. Life is a supreme power. It operates in this plane under specific laws that are immutable. It doesn't give a fuck about your emotions. It doesn't give a fuck about your feelings. It doesn't give a fuck about your concepts. These laws are immutable, meaning these will come to pass. You cannot break them under any circumstances, period. So that you live in a fantasy world that you believe is the truth. The mind creates experiences. And I'm not saying that you don't have these experiences. They're very real for you. And they're mentally induced. And the mind has its own pantheon of deities that you can, with a lot of precision, access. What does that have to do with reality? Right? So what I'm trying to say is that this underlying reality remains there and it doesn't care about what you believe. It doesn't care even if your belief is perfectly, like your belief mirrors reality. Who cares? It's still a belief. Yet it's perfectly mirroring reality. This is what the so-called Hindus specialize in. They're like brilliant minds, or like they're perfectly trying to mirror reality with their minds and trying to understand perfectly. Yet it doesn't matter. It's not real. It's not reality. And you think that technology doesn't generate a sensation and a feeling and juices, and doesn't have its own rasas, meaning juice, literally, doesn't have its own, I don't want to say pulsating principle, but because it has its own currency. Let's put it this way. Yeah, of course it does. What does that have to do with reality? Nothing. So if you want to access reality, you have to let go of that. And you need to be guided to go towards that living experience, and you cannot detox from that mental space instantly. It takes time. Especially in some of us, this is established and has, like, these mental universes have been created for generations upon generations, and that are passed down and activated from, like, this is a deep affair of the mind. So to decondition yourself, it takes some time. You need also something more powerful than this. That means if you need that concept, which for you is not a concept, it's reality, but if you need it, it's because I'm telling you, because your life depends on it, literally. So that's why it's hard to speak, because if I speak and I'm just being like blunt, I'll just like laugh at it. But as the doctor, I'm like, no, you need this. I respect it. I respect that power. I respect what it does, and I know that you need it. But as I'm just speaking in the flow, I'll say whatever I want. But if we have an actual conversation, I cannot but respect it, because it's protecting you. And you can't just rip it away from a person, because then they fall into an abyss of nothing. They have no foundation. That mental concept or construct is their foundation. They're not founded in reality. And reality is intense, and reality instantly confronts you to death. Instantly. And this is the very thing, as we've established before, the very core of the story of Adam and Eve is death, and the very core of our human experience is death, and is trying to escape death by every means possible. So establishing yourself in reality is to face death, and one can say that this is why some people believe that Lord Shiva is the god of yoga, or one of the supreme deities, because to face Lord Shiva means to face death. Tension aside. So one cannot simply let it go. One has to slowly be introduced into a truer reality in which you can, it has to be real, that you can establish yourself in it and repose in it and let go in it, and you feel that there's something actually there that supports you. A real, that is better than that. Something that genuinely supports you. And by, you let go, and then when you let go, you settle in. And, it's there, it's holding me. And now you start to have a dialogue with that intelligence. You literally move away. You're like a person who moves. You move from there, you transplant your attention from this, and you replant your attention in reality. There's one reality. The mind is infinite. There's multiple, and each world can be fractalized, but reality is one. And the supreme reality includes all those fractalized aspects of the mind, and the mind is just simply fractalizing itself more, because that's its process. That's what it does. It fractalizes itself more as we go more and more towards quote-unquote chaos. It's not really chaos, but I think you understand what I mean. Unbalance. The expression of dis-ease due to the primary lesion, which was the hit of the gong at the so-called Garden of Eden, so that you just put the pieces together. So it only fractalizes itself more and more as you go deep, more and more micro, and the micro becomes your little jail cell. Reality engulfs that. It doesn't exclude anything. That's why it's reality. But reality is established in itself all the way to that original place. Now, this is the current of life. And I've told you this is the day of the kalma. هي مكتوبة. برافو عليك. برافو عليها. برافو tout le monde.